I hope you had an opportunity to set up your HTML because now it's all JavaScript and smooth sailing with JavaScript from now on. So the first thing that I usually like to do is select the elements from the page using my JavaScript. And I typically use document query selector. And the reason I do that is that this one is probably one of the most flexible ones, and it's a lot like CSS. So you can really easily select your elements and select them as objects in JavaScript, and then you can select them and use them within your code. Also creating a game object. So this is a global object that can hold the game data. And then also an output area, so we are going to have to constantly update that. So let's create a variable in order to hold our output. So this is our main game output area, and this is all corresponding with the elements that we created on the page in the last lesson. So these are corresponding with the HTML elements, and we created one called, so this was for the questions or for the output. And then the last element that we created, so that was the next button. And doing the same thing where we do document query selector and selecting that element by the class of next. So now we've got all of our elements as objects in JavaScript. So coming up next, we need to add in some functionality. So we've got this next button. It's not doing anything right now, but we have the ability to select it. So when I type into the console now, we can see that we've selected the element properly within the NX object. So we're ready to add some functionality and adding an event listener. So this is going to be a crucial part of navigating through the game because you need to give the player an ability to move to the next question and also to create the question. So we're going to create a function that's going to create questions, and this is going to get triggered and we're going to be able to move to the next question within the same format. So when we start the game, it's going to do a fetch request, pick up all of the data that we need, and load all of that data into the JavaScript object, and we're going to display it on the page. And the create question function is going to be really the core of what we're doing and how we're displaying the content from the game object. And the game object is where we're going to load and get all of the JSON data from the spreadsheet. And building this application dynamically, so that means that if we update any of the spreadsheet content, then we're also going to correspondingly be able to output it. And that's going to be what we mean by dynamic. When we build applications, we want them to be as flexible as possible. So if we add new questions or remove questions, as long as the structure is the same, the application should be able to handle as many questions as we have loaded within the spreadsheet. And that's the objective of what we're going to be doing in the upcoming lessons. We're going to make this application dynamic and flexible as possible. So creating the question, and when we create the question, what I want is that NX button, applying a style and display, and applying the style of display none. So what's going to happen when we click the button, it's going to disappear. And then there's going to be a bunch of other stuff that we're going to add in the upcoming lessons as well when we add some more additional functionality. So coming up next, we need some data to work with, because without the data, we have no idea what we want to display on the page. So that's coming up next, where we're going to make a request to the URL. And this is the URL where we've got the content coming from the spreadsheet. So this is an endpoint API that we can connect to using fetch, bring all the data into the application as a JavaScript object, and then make use of that data within our JavaScript code. So all of that is still yet to come. So go ahead, set up your application, select all of the elements on the page so that they're objects in JavaScript, add the event listeners so they have some basic functionality of a next button, and then also make sure that you create the corresponding function and set the display to none. And that's the functionality that we've got for this lesson.